Hey everybody, today I'm going to go over a quick example using Colab, LangChain, OpenAI, and SQLite database that we will be uploading and mounting in our Google Drive to be used within the Colab notebook so that we have a database we can quickly and easily connect to just by simply uploading it to our Google Drive. This is just a beginner's higher level overview of a very quick example to start getting your feet wet and understanding some things. Like I mentioned, in this case, starting small like this, I realized some things that I wouldn't have alternatively a different way. So hopefully I can be of some service to anyone curious to get started with LangChain. So with that being said, let's talk about LangChain. LangChain is a framework for developing applications powered by language models. So they believe the most powerful and differentiated applications will not only call out to the language models, but also be data aware, connect the language model to other sources of data, and agentic, allowing the language models to interact with their environments. So the LangChain framework is designed around these principles. LangChain is an incredibly powerful tool. Sky's kind of the limit here. There's a lot going on under the hood. There's great documentation, as you can see here. You know, I'm sure you guys have seen many videos talking about different applications and ways to dive into LangChain. You can work with agents, you can work with chains. There's just no limit really to what you can do. Going back to their documentation here, we're going to be working with the Python specific documentation. However, they also offer purely conceptual guides here and JavaScript as well. Now, I prefer Python, so we're going to work with Python. Now, I have also included a couple links in the description. One will be to the Colab notebook. Another will be to this flights.db Dropbox file. I was fortunate enough to find this database that some kind person had uploaded from a different experiment I was working with, so we'll be using this. Again, this is flights.db and it contains a bunch of airline flight information. We're going to be working specifically with the SQL chain today, not the agent, but the SQL database chain. And it will be in SQLite. All right, let's get started. First things first, when you pop into LangChain, you're going to want to install the following command using that to install LangChain and then set up your environment as well. So we'll be working with OpenAI as well today. All right, so we're going to mostly follow LangChain's documentation. There are a few things I have done a little bit different than them for the purposes of this demo. And we're just going to wait for LangChain to install here in Colab. It's going to take a second. Okay, so we've got that. Next thing we're going to do is install OpenAI, right? Download the database file here, flightsdb from Dropbox, and then connect, then upload that file to your Google Drive. Then lastly, you're going to want to mount this. Now, this is the function here that's slightly different than the SQL chain example that they show. They're connecting to a different database and doing things slightly different. For the purposes of this demo, this function here just allows this particular Colab notebook to connect to your Google Drive, right? So in this case, we're going to want to connect and allow. And now we're going to go ahead and import SQLite here and connect to that. These paths should be the same paths from your Google Drive if you've uploaded the flights database. And you will notice here that you can see Drive, My Drive, and then all of your files. So just copy the path to, wherever that may be. It should be the same path, but if it's not, just feel free to go ahead and copy path and paste that in. All right, now we're going to go back to the LangChain documentation here. And we're going to start off with this command. Now we're going to go ahead and import our environment. So what we're going to want to do next is go ahead and set up our API keys. That will be on platform.openai.com. We're going to go ahead and view our API keys, right? You can see all of your keys here. You can create a new key if you so choose, etc. So once we have that key, we're going to go ahead and copy and paste it in right here and get our environment set up. Next, we're going to go ahead and follow this framework, but we're going to replace this with a path to our particular database, which in this case is in our Google Drive, and it's the flights database. You want your temperature to be 0 for this LLM. Then we're going to go ahead and follow this next step, which is laid out here. Now, also bear in mind for data-sensitive projects, you can specify return direct true in the SQL database chain initialization to directly return the output of the SQL query without additional formatting. This prevents the LLM from seeing any contents within the database. However, note that the LLM still has access to the database schemes by default, right? So something to keep in mind. We're going to keep verbose true, pop this in over here, and now we're going to run the chain. So in this case, I had an earlier example that I had filmed, but let's just go ahead and stick with the same question I asked, which was how many airports in Iceland are there, right? So let's go ahead and we're going to get 22. Okay, there's 22 airports in Iceland. We're going to want to verify this, right? Because we need to see what's going on. If you're a beginner like me and you're just trying to get your feet wet, go ahead and go to SQLitebrowser.org, download, and get the browser. Once you have this downloaded, feel free to go ahead and run it. And once we get this up and running and we've downloaded the database file, we can go ahead and pull that in, right? So let's say we go here and we can see our database for the flights. So we can see that there are 3 tables, right? Airlines, airports, routes, etc. So now let's browse the data. We asked it how many, airports? Let's see what we've got here. How many airports in Iceland are there? And we were told 22, right? So let's go back over here. And let's see, that looks like not quite 22, does it? Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh my gosh, that's only 10. Well, we can ask ourselves, why is it saying 22, right? The first thing we should maybe do in this case is let's go ahead and sort this by country, descending again. Let's go down some more here until we get to Iceland. Okay, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, da 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 da. As you can see here, from 3031 to 3010, there is in fact 22, because we're going to actually count this. So yeah, as we can see, there actually in fact are 22. Take my word for it, I would count it, but I doubt all of you want to hear that. So it turns out that this was pretty accurate. Now let's say, how many flights are there? Right? We're going to go ahead and run this. 67,663 flights. So let's pop on over here. We have airlines, airports, and routes. Looks like flights are more than likely going to be in routes, right? So we can go ahead and see 67,663. In this case, I suppose you could call those flights. There are routes. There isn't really flight data, but that would be the closest query, I suppose, to what we asked. So I'd say that's pretty accurate given the circumstances. Let's say how many flights, let's say how many airlines are there in Jamaica, right? Let's just ask another question. 2 airlines in Jamaica. Let's go ahead and sort this here. We'll go down. Look at that. 2 airlines in Jamaica. That's pretty cool. We could also ask it how many airports are there in Jamaica. As you can see, we can just ask a lot of questions, and we can make those questions a little bit more complicated as well. So if we go over here, we asked it how many airports are there in Jamaica, according to this database, that is. And as we can see, there are, in fact, 7. All right. What are some airlines from the United States that fly to Hawaii? Now let's go ahead and look at some other examples in here. They talk about sequential chain, right? So there's a lot of customization of prompts you can do. You can put, all kinds of information in here. And then we can return intermediate steps, limit the number of rows returned, add example rows from each table, custom tables. So if we see here, database sequential chain based on the query, determine which tables based on those tables, call the normal SQL database chain. So this is useful in cases where the number of tables is large. We'll go ahead and we'll copy this over, which we've done here, and we just change the path to our path. And we're going to go ahead and run this, which is according again to their documentation here. Now we're going to run the chain. What are some airlines from the United States that fly to Hawaii? And we can see here which table names it's going to use. We can also see how it's determining this, and it will finish the chain. So once again, we can see that the following are some airlines from the United States that fly to Hawaii, which is pretty cool. In this case, we don't really need to go too much further, but if we really wanted to, we could start editing the table info here, etc. So yeah, as you can see, you can really ask any kind of questions that you want. What are some airlines from the United States? Let's just ask. It's looking at this table, and it's determining these names. It's limiting us to 5, and it's finished the chain. So I hope that this just serves as a very great small example of some things that you can start to experiment with and explore using the SQL chain. This is meant to just be a very beginner-friendly tutorial to just start getting your feet wet and exploring some options. Once you get into customization of promptings or some of the intermediate steps and the rest of these capabilities, including the agents. We haven't even talked about agents. It gets pretty cool. I think that there's some great functionality here, but this is just meant to be a very, like I said, beginner-friendly, quick and easy way to get up and running, cross-reference against what you have, in this case, our flights database, and wrap your head around some of these capabilities and strengths. If any of you would like to see some other videos, I am contemplating getting more in depth about what LangChain is or some other tools and options and exploring some more capabilities eventually. But this is just, again, supposed to get beginners like myself up and running in a nice way that I was able to find by working with Google Drive and Colab. So I will be sure to link the Colab notebook as well as the flights database download link in the description. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day or evening, whichever it is. And if you have any questions as well, feel free to drop them in the comments. And look forward to seeing you all in the next video.